everybody. This is Gloria Ward with the I'm Loving Me Project, and I want to welcome you to another self-love conversation. And tonight, the lady that I am going to be interviewing, you probably saw her post on Facebook. It is going crazy right now. There are so many people who's been liking and posting because her story is a story that you really want to hear, just to see how it started and how she actually overcame what she overcame. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of an overview of Tanya Mackenzie. Now, we did a blog on her, and when I read the story, I was so shocked. I said to myself, we got to have her on this podcast. So let me read to you exactly what we have on our blog so you can get an idea. So her name is Tonya McKenzie, and she's the author of a book called A Child's Memories of Cartoons and Murder. And it's her personal story and victory in surviving gun violence, sexual assault, and all-out generational dysfunction. And it says, have any of your kids been in a federal witness protection program or survived gun violence and or sexual assault? She watched her mother get shot and her boyfriend get murdered at 4.5 years old. The murder was such a menace that his parole was blocked twice by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Governor Jerry Brown, with a portion of the case handled by the office of Senator Kamala Harris. Is that her name, Kamala Harris? Mm-hmm. She overcame all of the odds against her and was highlighted in a motherhood book that came out on Mother's Day 2018, Amazing Moms. And she became the first Black woman elected to the board of directors of the what is it called?
Redondo Beach
Chamber of Commerce, in a city with only 4% African American population. Ladies, I really want you to hear this story. Tanya, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming on with our audience on our podcast and also live on our social media. Please tell us the story if you can.
God, where do I even begin? So, I first want to say I started telling my story because I realized that we all have a story, right?
Absolutely.
Mine is not, it's not a one of a kind story, in particular with the gun violence, but many of us have been through some pretty tragic things. And as I tell my story, other women come out and tell theirs, which has been like mind blowing to me. But for the most part, I witnessed my mom get shot at 4.5. It was a Saturday morning. We were watching, her boyfriend's son was there with us. They had spent the night and we were watching Schoolhouse Rock, right? You remember that? Schoolhouse Rock? Life was so simple, and
right.
Pac-Man and Smurfs, and life was good. And having a little Captain Crunch on a Saturday morning, there was a knock on the door. I, like most kids, were not allowed to open the door, so I had to call my mom. She came out in her robe, opened the door, and as she was opening the door, the men rushed in. It was chaotic. Went into the room. There was a lot of tussling and chaos going on. I was afraid, but I also had another little boy with me at the time. So, I'm trying to protect him. I'm 4.5. I'm trying to protect him like he's one of my baby dolls or something.
Right.
And all this madness is going on, and they come out the room and there's gunfire. And my mother actually fell right in front of me while we were sitting on the couch. It was a pull-out couch. Back in the days, you had a pull-out couch.
Yeah.
We could afford 2 bedrooms. So it was a 1-bedroom. My bedroom was the pull-out couch. It was bed at the time.
Right.
Fell right in front of me. And I was so shook, I couldn't even reach for her. But looking at that scene, I still remember the smell of burning flesh. Wow. I still remember the carpet was green, and what that blood looked like mixed into that green carpet. It was mad chaos. And after as the chaos consumed us, my cousin, she had an older cousin that lived upstairs, and she came down, and I remember she grabbed me. So she was holding me, and the police come in and the fire department. And I remember the ambulance pulling off with my mother, and then I didn't see her again. Mm-hmm. They took me to my grandmother's house, and I didn't see my mom again for a long time. Truth be told, I thought she had died. I hadn't seen her.
She survived. Oh, thank you.
Right, but I'll tell you how that came about. So no one ever talked about it. No one spoke about it at all. I literally went back that was a Saturday morning that happened. I went back to school on Monday.
Wow.
Nobody said a word. That's what we do. We don't talk about things in our families. We just keep moving right along. And you definitely don't talk to kids, right? Kids
it should be seen and not heard. I know that's what you
right. Not a grown folks' business.
That's right.
So that's kind of the mindset that was taking place. I went to school on Monday, hadn't seen my mom in a while. I remember being at school one day, and some men came in suits and picked me up, took me to an airport from school, and there's where I was reunited with my mom at the airport. I remember us taking off in the airplane. That was the first time I had ever been on a flight at night, and it was almost like it was like fireworks. It was almost exciting, but it was also the first time I had seen my mom in months.
Right.
And they whisked us off to what I found out later as I did the research for the book, to New York. So we spent, I don't even know how long in Federal Witness Protection Program in New York. I just remember so many nights we would go to dinner with these nice white guys in suits.
Yeah.
And that was my life. We lived in a hotel. We went to dinner, men in suits.
Right.
As long as I could possibly remember. It was bananas. So after we did that, we moved back to the Bay Area. So I'm from the Bay Area, I'm from San Jose, California. The murder actually took place in Palo Alto. So I don't know how much you know about the Bay, but cities like Richmond, California, East Palo Alto, those places all had some of the highest crime rates and murder rates, death rates in our nation.
Wow.
I think Palo Alto had the highest AIDS rate for a while. Just bananas, like crazy stuff was going on at that time. So we moved back to the Bay Area. And what I found out later, because we lived in a place where there were a lot of other women with children. Right. There was no men though. It was just all women and their kids. So now I've left this situation in the hotel, and now we're in this place where there's only women and children. I come to find out later that we were in a prison for women with children. And a lot of these things, so a lot of these things, as I got older and started to just say them out loud, it sounded like something I've only heard in movies.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
So we come to find out, and when I talk about generational dysfunction, when all of this happened, the man that actually shot my mom and murdered her boyfriend was my uncle. It was her uncle, my great uncle. And my family had asked her to lie and say that he was coming in to protect her.
Oh.
So protect the family, right? We're protecting the family. Instead of saying he's a menace, just say he was trying to protect me. That was an accident.
Right.
And she did.
Oh, okay.
But law enforcement already knew the truth.
Right.
So she got charged with perjury. So after we get out of federal witness protection and he goes to prison, we're in jail.
Correct. Wow.
Yeah, so that lasted for a while. We got out. We wound up living with my grandmother. We moved to Stockton for a while. It was just a lot of bouncing around. And eventually, her and my grandmother got into it. We wound up in a shelter. So we went from bouncing around to shelter life. Eventually, we wound up getting our own place and continuing down that path. Thank the Lord for programs like Section 8, because had we not had Section 8, there's definitely no way that we would have had our own place. She just couldn't afford it. One of the things I didn't share in the blog is that when my mother got shot, she was pregnant.
You lying.
Right. So I found out while we were in the witness protection that she was pregnant. And she eventually had my little brother, and he had some behavior problems as a child. And for me, as the older sister and one that had gone through all this stuff, I was just like, why is he so bad? Like, God, he bad, can't take him nowhere. And we find out later, because it was hard for her to keep a job because she always had to leave work to go deal with something. So when she did get a job, she would have to leave work to go deal with some behavior problem. My brother got kicked out of preschool. I was like,
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing, but
Yeah, I was like, come on, are you kidding me? This is my life. Right. But come to find out later, we tried to go see a therapist. She almost cussed the therapist out. So I think I had PTSD just in thinking that I would ever go see a therapist. Girl, you know how Black people are. We don't want to hear nobody telling us how to raise our kids. Right. I thought she was going to fight that man.
Oh, Lord.
And but come to find out, my brother did get tested. He had bipolar disorder. And it has been 30-something years now. And I think he's finally really starting to deal with that. But while I was writing the book, doing the research on even that, you start realizing that there are things that really take place when a woman is pregnant, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And how that actually affects the child. And it made me think a lot deeper than just my mom's situation. There are so many women that are in situations that are just unhealthy, unhappy, abusive, depressive, and all of those things do something to the child in their life.
And that was my thing when I read your story, is how did all of this affect you? And was it negative or positive? Because it looks like it could go either way, right? And if it did go in a positive way, which we already know because you're doing so many wonderful things now, which we're going to talk about. I want to know what that journey was like. But was it a period once you started to discover everything that it went to a place where you questioned everything about yourself or your family? How was that? How did that trauma affect you?
There was so many different levels to this, right? So you're starting at a young age, at like the 4, 5, 6, age, elementary school, where you're seeing other kids that have mothers and fathers. Right. Sometimes my mom was around, sometimes she wasn't. My dad was never around, which I never understood. And then just trying to process that, even the single parent household, you're trying to understand that. But then looking back on how all this stuff happened, you don't know as a kid what else happens in other people's homes. So I wasn't sure, you're just like, is this normal? Like, is this regular? Because we also had, when I say generational dysfunction, there was a lot of fighting that used to go on at our house. Like literally every weekend we would have birthday parties or some kind of gathering, and it would end with a fight, the police showing up, or bloodshed. Literally sitting at a table watching my grandmother get knocked out by one of her brothers. Like, and then we all go hang out again the next week.
I had uncles and aunts that will always fight just like that.
This is normal. And then there's nothing that tells you that this isn't normal.
That is true.
You really don't think, oh, well, something's wrong with me. Just like, this is my family and this is what we do. And even when I started to try to break that cycle later on, it was looked upon me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you tripping?
Right.
This is not normal.
You're acting different. There's something wrong with you. Think you better. Somebody get in your face. You better get in their face back. Right.
Like, no, man. But what basically wound up happening is, as I got older in high school and a little more conscious of what is normal and not so normal, spending time at other people's homes, we get a little more freedom in high school. We hang out at different people's houses, and you get to see, like, y'all don't throw blows.
Yeah, that's right. Like, y'all not arguing. You're not gonna hit them for that.
You just going to bed. Like, this is what we do. So as you kind of get more conscious about what's normal and what's abnormal, you have to start making a decision as to what you want your life to look like. Right. College, it really started to hit me a lot more. I started to rage a lot. I realized that I was just angry, ma'am. I'm going to be honest. I've gotten into several fights in college. Like, I don't know how I made it out because I literally had fist fights, just mad and angry for no reason. I mean, clearly there's a reason, but I didn't know what it was at the time. So, I tried my best. I'm generally a happy person by nature, but there are times when that rage just starts to fester. And also, one of the other things I didn't speak about is mental health, right? So watching my mother while she was pregnant, after she had her baby, dealing with the depression of losing someone that she loved and having a child by someone that she loved, who she is now raising by herself, there was a very high level of depression that a child living with someone going through mental illness is incredibly difficult.
Absolutely.
So watching her on days where she just couldn't get out the bed, or she's literally just crying for 12, 15 hours. Like, what kid wants to see their mother crying? Can't get out the bed. I learned how to cook at a very early age. By 6, I was changing my brother's diapers. Like, I was taking care of him because she couldn't.
You sound like me. Yeah.
Right. And that's
8 years old. I'm going to get my little sister, traveling on the bus to my aunt's house and paying money to go get her, to bring her back home. I cannot fathom an 8-year-old doing that, but that was normal.
That was normal. So as we continue to just, push through these situations, you figure out what's normal, what's not normal, what you want to continue and what you don't. A lot of it was washed over by the word family. And I started feeling like that word was kind of almost used as a weapon, right? It was weaponized. Like, we're family, so you don't go against this.
Right.
We're family, so you better move past this and bring your tail over here on Saturday, because that's what we do.
Right.
Instead of actually acknowledging what those things that are taking place actually look like. So going back just a little more, the uncle that did this, I had family members around me that still supported him. Like, we're going to the prison to visit him. We are all going.
Wow.
Or we, when he calls, you better accept his call.
Wow.
Normal. Wow. So it was just, I think eventually it was being in college and seeing what's normal, what's not normal, deciding, when I talk to you about that rage, I don't like what that feels like. So if you've had moments in your life where you've had easy love, right? You've been in just carefree situations and you are conscious about what that feels like. At some point you make a decision if that's what you want, or if you're okay with that festering, burning anger that can consume you.
I think at some point you just get tired. It's like I'm exhausting myself over this anger and I don't know what it is. I don't know why I feel this way. I want to be happy. I want to be able to get out of this. But how in the hell do I get out of this? Punching you is not helping me. You know what I'm saying? Like, fighting every day is not it.
Man.
So for you, when did you shift and say, you know what? I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to start my business. I'm going to move into PR, and this is going to be my new life. Did you get help? Did you get therapy? Did you work on yourself? Did you read? Like, what are some of the things you did?
I'll tell you what I did. Before my mom passed, I was about 25. It was my senior year in college. And I woke up one day and I called her because it just felt like everything started to click.
Gotcha.
We used to have these conversations about I was very judgmental. Yeah, I was judgmental. Everybody around you was doing crazy stuff. But she used to say, you need to either love people the way that they are or leave them alone. And of course, she gave other parental advice that you choose to or not to take. But most of the time, she was right.
Right.
My mother had a substance abuse problem. That bothered me. My dad not being around bothered me. But the things that she did share with me, all of a sudden it started to click. She was right about people, about, different situations in life. And I stopped being so angry with her and just decided to call and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. It was more of, I'm sorry for being a jerk, because there were times I was being a jerk and being judgmental instead of being a loving daughter, a respectful daughter. And there were times when just that information she gave me was spot on, but I was too stubborn to take it in, and wound up, of course, making mistakes in my own life at that young age. And it just snapped. And I called her and we had a very honest conversation. I told her I was ready to receive the truth, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Right? Her truth, be honest about my truth and how those things felt. Her and I talked probably about maybe 4 or 5 hours, just about stuff. My mom eventually passed away in 99, but I always think because we had that opportunity to have that honest conversation, there's two things about death there's two things about death that I think are incredibly important. One, you never want to have regrets. So anything that needs to be said, you need to say it and get it done before it happens. And two, if someone passes and you haven't had an opportunity to resolve things, it is so much harder for you to heal. And because her and I had that opportunity, I was able to heal and move on and be okay, not just with everything that we had went through, but everything from before, because our conversation was so earnest that it gave me light into how she moved. I was able to accept her for who she is. Listen, she just liked being in the streets. That's it. Some people like what they like.
Right.
But it took something like this, that conversation, for me to get it. Like, you're just who you are.
Exactly. And she loved you. You know that they love you and everything, but their life choices is their choices.
And this was the final thing that really did it. I knew that she loved me. Mm-hmm. She didn't necessarily love being a mother.
I gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So when I was able to understand that and understand that not everybody that has kids really wants to parent.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they don't love you. Right. It just means it's a job that they didn't want. I know people that go to college and they be a doctor and then they hate it.
Right.
Like this. So really coming to terms with the totality of what that meant, that feeling was so enriching and it was so enlightening. I was just like, I don't want to be angry. Like that felt so good in that moment. I just moved forward every day with the understanding that I wanted that. I wanted truth. I wanted honesty. I wanted whatever my happiness was. Because whatever happened, no matter how I felt about it, she had her own feelings about it. That gave me permission in my own life to say, I want my happiness.
Right.
What makes me happy? So when I did, start my own career, it really was about finding what made me happy. And it started in nonprofit because I always thought, oh, I just want to help people. But, you can't help nobody unless you got some money. So, it just kind of evolved from there. But really finding your happiness, what makes you happy, where your joy is. My husband and I, we've raised our 4 kids with that in mind. What is it that's going to make us happy? And of course, I have my own piece of, I definitely don't want them ever going through anything like this that puts me on a whole higher level of protectiveness and parenting. But sometimes you have to go through things to realize what it takes to get to the other side.
So my question is like, do you have any fear for your children though? A lot of women that we talk to, they say, one of the things that I am real cognizant of is that my kids, I do not want them to go through the same thing I went through. So I I don't let them spend the night at people's houses. I don't let them do this. I don't let them do that because I just don't know. Is that something that you do as well, or you allow your kids to really get out there?
There's very few people who my children have actually stayed at their house. So there's that. But part of it is also they don't even like being away. We wanted to build a household that kids wanted to be at.
Yeah.
So, there's always those homes where kids just want to be at. Not just your kids, but other people's kids.
Yep.
So
Your house is the cool house.
Right.
Yep.
And it does not mean it comes with no guidelines. It just means this is a loving place.
Correct.
A place of safety. This is a place where you're going to get fed.
Right.
So making sure that those things are in place, we don't have to worry about that too often. It's usually the other ones wanting to come over.
Right.
And those were homes that I used to want to go over. Places where they always had the food,
right.
No drama, nothing's happening. It's cool. So but I do have that fear, but that's again why we've paved the path for the kids the way that we have.
Right. So tell me about your business now. What is it that you're doing? How are you helping people? So give us a little spill on your business.
So I got started with in public relations back after I graduated from Cal State Northridge. I started working for the YMCA in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. The YMCA I worked for was very little. So, there's some mega Ys now.
Right.
That was not the one I went to work for. It was about this big.
Okay.
But they wanted to build a bigger YMCA. They didn't have a lot of money. And of course, when there's no money, what goes first? The marketing dollars.
Yep.
So, hey, figure it out. We want to hire you to do this awesome job, but we ain't got no money. Right. So I started, doing my own market research, figuring out who my target market was, cold calls, and we eventually built that facility. But let me tell you, much of it had to do with the media outreach and the media buying into the stories that I was selling. It was absolutely amazing. I started realizing that no matter how many ads I put out, nothing got me the attention that I needed more than a good story. So sometimes I would make a story. Sometimes I was the story.
Right.
It didn't matter as long as I could get them to buy into what I was selling. I would go make a story. I'm not kidding. I was calling editors, calling publishers just to see if they had any interest in our next steps, what we had going on, who we were bringing in. And I eventually wound up opening that facility. We raised together over $1 million.
Wow.
Facility, serviced the area. And from there, I've just been in marketing and advertising and PR for the last 20 years. So what wound up happening is I started a magazine out here in beach cities. I started a real estate agent magazine. I realized I don't like real estate agents. No, I'm just kidding. But selling advertisement was just not doing it. It wasn't penetrating enough. So with some of my advertisers, I would do PR work.
Okay.
Then I just decided, I'm going to open my own firm so that I can start working with the kind of people that I want to work with that are telling powerful stories, that are doing some incredible work in their communities, and that made a difference. Yeah. And since then, I have had some amazing clients. I've turned down some people. And I think that is really what gives you power, is when you know that you don't have to work with everybody. Because everybody not have the work ethic you have. Everybody does not have the same mindset and think in the same values lane that you're in. It really matters when you can say, all money ain't good money, bruh.
Right.
I'm good with that. So being able to find the kind of people that you want to work with, tell their stories, and really amplify their voices and the things that they're doing.
I really believe that's why you had to go through everything you went through. And that's why your stories work, where you had this experience and now you telling this story and really being able to tell other people's stories. I think the passion comes through that. That's why your PR work is so successful, because you have the passion for it, because you have the experience. And I'm just so amazed about how you were able to actually go through all this stuff. And it's stuff that we haven't even talked about that's inside the blog. And you are a mom, you have kids, you have this business, you made your peace with your mom. My thing is what would you tell our women who have not actually been able to, receive that kind of peace? Like you said, the healing is much harder, and we have a lot of that. And for women who went through a traumatic experience, what advice can you give them to help them kind of rise out of their grief?
One of the things you asked me was, did I go to therapy? Mm-hmm. My therapy was truth, right? When I got married, my dad asked to come to my funeral. I haven't talked about him because he hasn't been around. Right. So we had this conversation, and I basically asked him, can he just be honest with me about some things that I've never been able to ask him? And we went and had a sit down, and he allowed me to ask questions that I just needed answers to. But they were tough questions. They were very tough. Even with my mom, when I talked about that situation where we talked, it is important that we as women are able to handle the truth. That is our therapy. Stop being afraid of the truth and ask the tough questions and be ready to receive the tough answers. Yeah, it's scary, but you know what's scarier? Not knowing the truth or having someone lie to you to pamper your fear. That never, ever puts us in a good place, because we know better. Even if we're afraid of the answer, we know it's not the BS that somebody is feeding us. That is a woman's intuition. And I'll stand behind that until the day I die. We know better, but we don't ask the tough questions because we are so afraid of the answer. So for every woman that's out there that's dealing with something that's really afraid, don't be. You can't be more afraid of the truth than you are a lie that somebody is feeding you to keep you in whatever isolated box that you've been in with this untruth.
Right.
Whether it's your situation, your marriage, your parents, your kids, you have to be okay with the truth so that you can resolve whatever that issue is. Since your blog, I've had some pretty intense conversations. It always scares me to tell this story because every time I do, someone else has a revelation. Yeah. And I've had pretty scary revelations. And let me tell you, my advice is always the same. Go ahead. You'll be okay. Mm-hmm. We got you.
Right.
Because there's so many of us, just like you.
Absolutely.
That have had to go through things that just make no sense.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that I went through from 4 to 18 that made sense, literally.
Right.
So there's nothing that you can tell me that's going to run me off, and there's nothing that you're going to tell me that I'm not going to support you. And then there's a village of women just like us. There's a bunch of us.
There's
We're here.
Plenty.
So that's it. That's really my advice is don't be afraid of the truth.
Thank you so much. I tell my women all the time, I said, you couldn't control what happened when you were younger. You couldn't control what was going on when you were a teenager. But now that you're older, you can go ahead and you can take your power back. You can start your own lane. All of the values that you had when you were younger, if they're not serving you, you can get rid of them.
Yep.
You grown now. You know what I'm saying? You can get rid of them.
You are hecka grown.
You could form new values. You could form new habits. Your house is the cool house. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, the house wasn't the cool house, but now your house where the kids come is the cool house. That's a standard that you set. You know, that's the stuff that you started for you and your kids. And it's so hard to break that sometimes because it's kind of like what you said. you never get to see what's going on behind closed doors in someone else's house. So you believe that this is just what it is, and that's all you know. Whereas, like, no, I tell them all the time, no, what you're in is not, it is dysfunction, it's toxic. And they say, well, how so? Because you're not happy. You know, you're not happy. You wouldn't be here, right, if you didn't feel that something was wrong, because you can feel it all the time.
It burns.
All the time. And like you said, the way it manifested for you was anger, right? The way it manifests for some of them is depression. The way it manifested for me, it was fear, it was anger, it was a whole bunch of stuff, you know? But I am so happy you were able to share your story with us. Now, please tell us where we can find you, how we can connect with you. If there's anything that you're offering, please let us know. And we will definitely put that out there. So how can we connect?
Awesome. So on Instagram, I'm PRBizMom, PRBizMom, but I am on Sand and Shores on all platforms. Right now, I am just working with businesses, entrepreneurs, and personalities to get their PR strategies ready for 2020, because, you know, it's time that we kind of take control of our future, and we want to make sure that everybody knows about these amazing stories and this awesome job that the ladies are doing out there. So Sand and Shores on every platform, website sandandshores.com, and hopefully, you know, I'll get a chance to see some of y'all live.
Absolutely. And tell us about the book. Is the book on Amazon or anything like that?
So the book is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But if you go to TanyaMcKenzie.com, everything is there. TonyMckenzie.com. And all the good stuff is there. I do come out, and I've been to churches. I've done domestic violence events. And I love women empowerment because I always say we are better together.
Oh, Tanya, thank you so much for being on our podcast. Thank you so much for doing this recording with us. And we'll definitely want to connect with you in the future and come and speak to our women, because I strongly believe that your story is something that they need to hear in person. So we're definitely going to connect in 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing what you do, because we need it. We all need it.
Absolutely. So I'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.